You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Good evening or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to the Atlantic to you worldwide. Get yourself a cup of Java and find a comfy, easy chair. And get ready for Gary and his guest on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And now, here's Gary.
And here I am. We got Earl Grey. We also have James Christbaum. Guys, are you out there?
I'm here.
How about you, James?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, you got a couple questions?
There he is.
James, you got a couple questions for Earl?
Yeah, sure. Always got questions. Always. Anyway, Earl, did you say you were abducted before?
I was visited. I wasn't abducted, as far as I know. Would you like me to tell you about
that? Yeah, about that time. Now, when you were visited, did they take you to the ship, or was it in your room, or
no,
tell me what
it was in my
happened.
room. I never saw a ship. I'll give you a little backstory. I had just recently become a MUFON field investigator. I was very nuts and bolts about the way that I felt about UFOs. I thought that it was a physical phenomenon. But I had been reading a little bit about CE5, where people were drawing UFOs to themselves. And I kind of, I had a background where I used to meditate when I was younger pretty regularly. I was pretty good at it. And my whole feeling, I was kind of naive about it, quite honestly. I was hoping to meet Valiant Thor, Space Brothers, Space Sisters, nice aliens. And I started sending out like this. I would meditate and send out the message of, I want to meet you. You can abduct me. I am perfectly fine with it. Go ahead. And I kept on doing that. And I think that, I don't know, maybe I hit a nerve, or maybe they just wanted to shut me up. But it was weird because I just closed my first case or two for MUFON. Neither were UFOs. One was a Mylar balloon, and I forget what the other case was, but it wasn't a UFO. But I was trying the CE5 communication thing, and so one night I went up to bed. And I hadn't been taking LSD or anything, I wasn't drinking. Not that you would have a huge, hallucination that included, tactile and visual and all sensorium involved. It was just a normal night where I went up to go to sleep. My wife was already asleep. We were living in the Burbank area at this time. And I went up to my room. I like to sleep with sort of in a semi-recumbent position where I was sort of semi-sitting up. I had a hip surgery a few months before, so that was kind of comfortable for me. So I was getting ready to go to sleep. I was lying there, and our room started flooding with light. It was weird because it felt peaceful. I didn't feel afraid. There was no reason for it. I mean, I'm like looking around, and I could move. I could see, turn my head around and look all around the room, and I couldn't really figure out a source for the light. But it kept getting brighter, and our room suddenly it started getting very, very quiet. We used to have a cricket problem where our rafters, we had a bunch of crickets that were living up there in these wooden rafters, and you couldn't hear the crickets, which was nice. That was a nice change because you could usually hear them. My wife was kind of dead to the world, already asleep. But the best I can explain it is that it seemed like I entered something like a hypnagogic state where it was somewhere between waking and not asleep, but sort of like this dream state almost. The light kept on getting brighter. And I'll tell you, I didn't question the light, and it didn't seem to have a source. It seemed to be coming through the walls themselves. I could not move. And it was sort of this gradual thing where I noticed that I could not move my fingers. I could move my eyes. I could no longer move my body. And I saw the wall in front of my bed start swirling around like with a sepia color. It was sort of this brownish, yellowish color. And the room was still lit up. And I'm starting to get scared at this point. I'm like, what the hell, you know? And I'm a nurse. I've taken care of quadriplegics for many, many years. And suddenly I'm rendered quadriplegic. And I think that scared me more than anything, is that I could not move. I felt very, very vulnerable. And I hadn't like put two and two together yet. I mean, when I was sending my little message out, I thought, you know, maybe I'd be outside and a ship would land in front of me and people would come out and invite me in or something, you know. I was very naive about the whole, you know, phenomenon at that point. So anyhow, these creatures came through the wall. They didn't walk. It was like they slid up, like almost like they were pulled in, or like it was almost like if somebody was on ice skates and you pushed them up to your bed, is what it seemed like. They were all in tandem, all together. It seemed very controlled and planned out. I could see someone tall standing in the opening in the wall. And I could see distance, and I could see light behind this person that was standing there. I couldn't see features, but it looked, you know, you couldn't see hair on the head. It just looked like this tall person with a bald head standing behind in silhouette. Well, it was 4 of the small gray creatures that you hear about that are probably the most commonly expressed in people's visitation stories or abduction stories. They were very robotic. To the best of my knowledge, I was scared to death. I was trying to communicate with them. They would not communicate back. They took blood or energy or both or neither. I don't know. It seemed to me like they drained energy, and I thought that they were draining blood as well from me. And I was scared because I thought they were going to exsanguinate me. It felt like I was getting weaker and weaker the longer that they were doing this. And there was no communication. All I could see was these gray faces that were very smooth, and the dark eyes that are mirror-like. They're standing around me, and they had tubes on my arms and on my legs. It was, the best of my memory, it was about 15 minutes passed by, and I never received any calming message from them, no communication whatsoever. They just stared at me, and suddenly it was over. The tubes came off of me. They didn't turn around and walk out of the room. They slid backwards like they were still staring at me the whole time. Went back through the hole in the wall. The hole in the wall closed up. There was still light in our room, and you could see dust motes in the light. You could see dust like spinning around in our room. It got darker and darker, and finally I could move, and I shook my wife, and I started screaming at her and yelling. I was horrified. And my wife said, "Oh my God, you've joined this crazy UFO group, and now you've gone insane." And that was all she wrote. And you know, I paced around, and I was scared. I was scared to death. I've never been so afraid in my life, and I've been in some scary situations before. But this was unlike anything that I've ever experienced, because my borderline reality was changed through this encounter. I did not have marks on my body, so I don't know if they literally took blood or if it was just a psychological thing that they did to me. But it was realer than real, and it was not a dream. And I wasn't asleep when this was happening. I didn't even mention it again. I wasn't going to mention it to my wife because I didn't want my wife to believe me, you know. I didn't want her to think I didn't want her to have me put away or anything. And I felt embarrassed by it. 2 nights later, my wife is the one who woke me up. And again, our room was flooded with light.
Wow.
And this time my wife was pacing back and forth on the right side of our bed. And she was saying, Earl, you need to tell your little friends that they need to leave us the F alone. She used the F word, right? So
wait a minute. Earl, we are a family-oriented show. You mean she said leave the Ford alone?
Leave the Ford alone. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So, you know, and it was very strange, you know, the language my wife used, your little friends. Now, my wife says that she never saw any entities, that the room just flooded with light again, that it had no source, but she didn't see any entities. But I found that the language she used was strange. So I don't know if they gave her forgetfulness or what about it. But I was very thankful that this happened on the one hand because at least my wife didn't think that I was insane anymore. 2 nights after that, we both woke up. And again, our room was flooded with light, with no source. Although there was light that was coming through the window as well. It was coming from above our house. So we both ran to the window. We opened up the curtains, were looking up, and it was so bright you couldn't see what the source of the light was from. Again, it was perfectly silent. You couldn't hear street noises. You couldn't hear crickets. The light suddenly turned off, just like suddenly gone. We were in pitch dark, and you could see the neighbors' porch lights turning on. So I think that other people may have actually seen this light. You know, I don't think that it was just us that saw it. But that was what happened to me 5 years ago. And for a long time, I kept this to myself. I think the first person I told was Peter Robbins, who was Bud Hopkins' assistant. Because, you know, he worked with Bud Hopkins and he knew about visitation and abduction stuff better than anybody else. I did tell Jeff Krause, my state director, and I got a big, huge eye roll from him. And I think, you know, I'm thinking, oh, God, he's going to fire me, you know, because Jeff back then was a little more nuts and bolts than he is now. I think that I've seen a little bit of an evolution in Jeff's attitude about high strangeness stuff. And plus, he knows me well enough that he knows that I don't have a propensity for making up crazy stories. But those were the only people that I told were those two. Jeff didn't fire me. He actually made me chief investigator. So I guess I'm a good field investigator. But it's really helped me in my work with experiencers because I know that it's a real thing. I know it's true. I don't know what their motives were. I don't know if they would have come to me if I hadn't been nudging them the way I was. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if they were just trying to shut me up, if I was like being a bother or something.